Business greetings, everyone. It's good to see everyone again for this Saturday. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about how to focus on propriety and fundamentals of life. And of course, like before that, let us have a quick silent meditation to focus our mind and bring ourselves to the present. So let us all sit comfortably, both feet flat on the floor. If you have glasses, you can remove your glasses. Let us gently close our eyes. Let us rest our hands, making meditation gesture and resting our hands on your lap. Let us regulate our breathing as we gather all our thoughts to the present. Now let us slowly taking in a few deep breaths, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in, breathing out, breathing in again, breathing out. Let us gently rub our palms together. Cover our palms on our eyes, top of our head, over our ears, to the back of our neck. Let's gently rub our palms together. Gently massage our shoulders, arms, all the way to our fingers and wrists. Let us rub our palms together again. Let's breathe in, breathe out as we bend forward. Gently massage our back, our thighs, knees, calves. Okay, relax our feet and go ahead and wear your glasses if you have one. Okay, so let us have a quick recap of what we have talked about and discussed last week. We basically read the articles on how to have a happy and bright life. And of course, like Verbal Master Xing Yun has suggested 4 points how to have a happy and bright life. First one is we need to think clearly, we need to work honestly, we need to live joyfully, and we need to learn earnestly. So of course, like during the week, we also have the further discussion talking about happiness, the definition, and how we look at happiness in a way. So of course, Verbal Master in the article, he also mentioned that the truth is that a happy life is where and when we are content, rational, helpful, and benevolent. Okay, so that reinforces like when it comes to happiness here, we're not referring to like winning the lottery that brings us happiness, or going for vacation or going for a trip that brings us happiness. But when we talk about happiness, from a Buddhist perspective is that we try to find different ways how to experience happiness that is long term. It's not just something short term, lasting for more than a month, a year, 10 years, or even a lifetime. So sometimes when we read different texts, sometimes we also come across the term like mundane happiness and super mundane happiness. Is just basically meaning that mundane happiness is like day-to-day contentment, or we are satisfied with certain things that we have in our life. Like for example, if your mom or your parents or someone in the family have cooked you a plate of spaghetti, we feel very happy because we have something to eat when we are hungry. That is also happiness in a way. And of course, like when it comes to Buddhist practice, we find different ways how to be content, how we're going to practice so that happiness that we experience, whether it is the Dharma joy that we experience happiness by helping others who are in need, or like just doing something for the greater good, that will also bring us joy, that will also bring us happiness in many ways. So for us to have um, a happy and bright life is not only fulfilling our daily needs, but also the needs of others. Only then our life will be like quote unquote happy and bright in a way. Okay, so that's a bigger picture, and we learn more and more about happiness. We learn more and more about how to be content. We learn more about how to be rational. We learn how to think clearly and see things as it is. And of course, like being with others, we try to be honest and everyday life with everything that we have, and also being able to share with what we have with others, that will also bring us joy. And yeah, so this is what we have discussed last Saturday. And for today, we're going to look at how to focus on propriety and the fundamentals of life. Okay, so understanding the fundamentals of life is crucial to cultivate the self-awareness in knowing the basics of life. Okay, when it comes to basics of life, it could refer to the day-to-day necessities, or even like the psychology aspects, the psychological needs in our mind, that we need support from people, support from our family itself. That is also considered one of the basics of life. And also the people around us, and have a proper sense of propriety in dealing with all matters of life. Starting from the moment that we wake up, and then we do whatever we need to do, and then we have breakfast, being with others, and then going out for a walk, and then going to work, or even like coming back from work, or even doing the work. That's a lot of interaction with the people around us. There's a lot of interaction within our family. There are a lot of interaction between ourself and the nature, ourself and environment. There are many, many things that we have in contact with in our everyday life, all the matters in our life. Okay, so, and of course, like when it comes to that, when we conduct ourselves, we need to pay attention to our fundamentals to establish ourselves in life. Okay, so whether it is good or bad, well, whatever that we do, we need to have the certain level of awareness within ourselves to focus on what is right and what is not right. Okay, whether when we are, our mind is in the zone of like labeling what is good and labeling what is bad, the situation that we are in, we have to take one step back and look at the whole picture instead of like labeling what is good and what is bad. Okay, so we're going to discuss it one by one in the coming slides. First of all is knowing propriety and justice is fundamental to conducting ourselves. So what does it mean? We have to focus on propriety, which express through behaviors, actions, and decisions that are in line with societal norms, moral principles, and personal values and justice in life. Okay, so if we lost our propriety and justice, we cannot create a humane society. So take for example, the start of the pandemic until even now, there's a lot of frequencies in terms of the air rage, okay? Meaning that people being aggressive when they are on the plane. They call it air rage, rage. Sometimes like we might be wondering what really happened, okay? Like what are the causes of the rage when you're boarding the plane? Of course, like some people will say that it is because of the mask mandate. People are required to wear a mask when you're boarding a plane, okay? But is it that really the cause that give rise to the air rage? Okay? So this is a question for us to think about it, but we're looking at the propriety and justice in society. Sometimes whatever that we see, whatever happenings in the society that we see, okay, that could be one of the effects, okay, of whatever causes that were planted before, okay, but we won't know what causes it. What we see is just the effect of whatever that had happened before. And when the conditions are there, it just kaboom. It just either, well, we talk about like pressing the button that like, make a person angry, make a person aggressive, and so on and so forth. And going back to the average, in the year 2021 itself, there are over 6,000 cases of air rage, just 1 year, which is 2 in every 10,000 flights. That is a lot in terms of the frequency. Okay, sometimes it could be because of small little thing. It could be because of the child sitting behind, like putting the legs in front of the chair that make it the person in front feeling like movement of the chair. And then it could be because of the crying of baby in one of the seats that just agitated that person. Okay, that could be many of the incidents that contributed to the air rage. Okay, and of course, like last year, the number has dropped, but they are still like 10 times higher than the past decades. Okay, even like back in 1995, there were only like 146 reports of unruly airline passengers. Now we have 6,000 cases in a year. Yeah, but of course, like this year, it continues to decline. But that is one of the questions that we ask ourselves. What had happened? Okay, what had contributed to the effects that we're seeing? Okay, and of course, like looking at the incidents, okay, then we ask ourselves, what should we practice in order for us to plant more wholesome causes to our everyday life? Okay, one of the practice that every one of you knows. Okay, this is a refresher course. The Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, something that is so fundamental, something that is so core, is the core teachings of the Buddha. And sometimes we might have neglected in our everyday life. Okay, so the first one is have the right view. Whatever news that we saw on the TV, what we heard from the podcast, we have to determine what is useful information, what is useful to us. Okay, and then when we listen to the news, we have to determine whether is it true or not. Okay, it doesn't mean that the news are not true, but I'm just saying that the news are reporting what they listen to others. So for the news to report what others are saying, we have to determine whether others saying is it true or not. So we have to think for ourselves what we listen, what we are receiving or inputting to it ourselves. And that contributes to the thinking, the thought process. Okay. And once our view, our thoughts are right, then our speech will be aligned with righteousness, wholesomeness, right speech. And when our speech is aligned, is wholesome, then our action will be of right action. And then when our everyday action is wholesome, then our livelihood, our career will be aligned with the wholesome practices, the right path. Okay, it just goes on. Right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort. Every day we practice right religion. When it is time for us to eat, we eat. When it is time for us to take a break, we take a break. When it is time for us to work, we work. Okay. And even there was one incident that I shared with you the story before, where during one of the Dharma session of the Buddha, okay, the Buddha was sharing of one teachings, and then among all the disciples sitting there, there was one disciple who is like falling asleep. It could be right after lunch. Okay, and the disciples was like dozing off, and then the Buddha just pointed out to that disciple saying that you should practice right religion. You shouldn't be lazy in a way. Okay. And then the disciples felt so bad, falling asleep during the Dharma, the Buddha's Dharma session. Okay. So from that day onwards, the disciples punished themselves and not to sleep, even at it is the time to go to rest. He stayed up the whole night, the whole day, 24 hours. And then until the 7th day after a week, because there's no rest, eventually he lost the eyesight. He cannot see because he didn't go to bed. He didn't take a rest. Okay. And because of that incident, the Buddha heard about that, and then the Buddha went to the disciples saying that when we practice, we have to practice right diligence, meaning that when it is time for us to do certain things, we do it. When we are within the whole community, when it is time for us to do the cleaning, the chores, then we go together. Okay, when it is time for us to go to bed, take a rest, then we take a rest. When it is time for us to do the cleaning, when it's time for us to eat, when it is time for us to meditate, we have to practice right diligence. Okay, if one were to go to an extreme, no matter how good it is, like even meditation, we won't be like meditating throughout the whole night, 24 hours. Okay. Again, the Buddha emphasized on right diligence. It is because we still have this physical body. It is not because we are attached to this physical body, but we have to take care of this physical body too. We need to use the restroom, we need to drink water, we need to eat, we need to shower, we need to do whatever that we need to do. Okay, so to take care of the physical body. So when it comes to right diligence, no matter how good the practice is, we have to balance. We have to balance. Okay, so of course, like right mindfulness and right concentration. So the Noble Eightfold Path, okay, it resonates with the 3 acts of goodness that Venerable Master has mentioned, okay, which is do good deeds, speak good words, and think good thoughts. A few days ago, one of our devotees shared with me saying that there was one day where she took both of her grandchildren to the school, and on the way, on the ride, she was asking them, you learn about the 3 acts of goodness. Out of the think good thoughts, speak good words, and do good deeds, which is more important? Do you know what do they say? They say that, of course, it's think good thoughts. And then the children further elaborate, because when you have good thoughts, then for sure, whatever that you say will be good words. And for sure, whatever that you do is good deeds. So even a young kid, like 6 years old and 10 years old, they know the logical connection behind practices, our mind, the words, and action. And the 3 acts of goodness that the children are learning is actually the Noble Eightfold Path as taught by the Buddha. Okay. So the second point is appreciating the big picture is fundamental in dealing with the world and conducting ourselves. Okay. So to further elaborate, we must be considerate of others, our community, and our country because they are a larger part of us. Okay. If we only think of ourselves and look after our narrow interests, ignoring the benefits of society and country, we will not be able to appreciate the big picture in life. Okay? We must be mindful of the needs of the community we live in before we can find our niche in society. Okay? So appreciating the big picture, okay, is very fundamental. Living in such a diverse society, and of course, like dealing with so many things around the world, and constantly we have to remind ourselves to be inclusive. Okay, and appreciating the big picture also reminds me of one of the stories that many of you know. Okay, just like there are a few people that cannot see, and then when you want to ask them to describe what does an elephant look like, because they won't be able to see the big picture, they can only rely on the touching of the elephant. So one person might say that the elephant is just like a rope because he's like touching the tail. And then here comes another person who's touching the tummy of the elephant. He says that, wow, this is huge, just like the wall. So the elephant looks like the wall. And then another person was like touching the leg, one of the legs. He said that, oh, an elephant looks like a tree trunk. Okay. But that also reminds us that no matter what we experience every day, we have to keep reminding ourselves, sometimes we need to take a step back and look at the whole picture, appreciating the big picture. And not only this one, just look at this one. That was like taking us all the way back to 2020. And you know what is that? Yeah, that was like the first announcement that were made about like COVID, like we're in a pandemic. And then people started to think that, oh, I need to stay home. One of the essentials was what? Toilet paper. Okay. Now, like, because now we don't have that issue anymore. But is this a reflection that how we, because of one perception that we attach to, we actually hit the panic button. Okay, so what does it mean? Can everyone recall when was the day, when was the time that we feel panic that we don't have toilet paper at home? That was the stay-at-home order in California. Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that sometimes, like, if we only focus on one factor, we will end up like panicking. Like whether it is like getting facial masks, okay, getting toilet papers, getting the essentials, and not only getting what we are sufficient, what we feel enough, but we panic buy. We buy a lot. We get more than what we need. So you look at the shopping cart here. It's just this one can last for like how many years? Yeah, but then when our mind is so focused on one factor that we don't see the whole thing. It's just like one time that I come across a person like who stare up at a tree, and then he was like looking at the tree for a moment, and then the passerby, whoever that passed by, they will stop and do the same thing, and eventually they have a whole crowd doing the same thing, looking up at the tree, and they say, what are you looking at? But because we're so focused on one factor again, that we don't see the whole picture, whether it is the blind trying to describe an elephant, or what we have experienced during the start of the pandemic, okay? Or even when we are in a situation that we only see one part of the whole picture, we might end up leading towards misunderstanding, misperception, misinterpretation of what one is going to say, what one is trying to convey. Okay, but then again, whatever that we read in the sutras, in the teachings, whatever that we learn from the history, whatever that we listen to the news, not only we look at the facts, but we try to understand the whole origination of that incident, so that we won't just be following what others are doing. Okay, we try to look at the big picture. Okay, and looking at a different angle, different perspective, like Verbal Master always talk about humanistic Buddhism. Okay, try to learn and try to listen to the local needs. What would you like to learn from Buddhism? What would you like to learn from the Dharma? Okay, so if every one of us look at Fo Guangshan today, every temples around the world might have a different emphasis in one's practice, or not only one's practice, but also the activities that we have. Okay, like for example, last year, that was the first year that we have the fur baby walking and blessing ceremony. Okay, and then of course, like not all Fo Guangshan temples have these activities, have this blessing event, this ceremony. Okay, but then why would I want to have it in San Diego? It is because of the local niche, the local needs. Okay, the first time when I set foot in San Diego, I opened the front door of the temple, walk out on the street, I'll always see San Diegans walking the fur babies. I would say 95% of whatever that I see like outside of the temple. And of course, like we always talk about humans practice, humans need. Okay, but how about the fur babies? How about other beings? We all know that not only humans but all beings have the potential to realize Buddhahood one day. And of course, human is one of the necessities. But then every one of us are so have the look at the fur babies as a spiritual support in a way within our family. So not only humans have the opportunity to take refuge and uphold the precepts, but also the family members within the family also need some spiritual support or some blessing. So that's the reason why we have this ceremony here as a way for us to not only we care for the people around us, but also their loved ones, fur babies. Okay, and a little bit commercial time. June 10th, we will also have another fur baby walking and blessing ceremony. Okay, so that will be next month in June. Okay, if anyone happens to be in San Diego, you're most welcome to join us. Okay, So the third point I would like to share with everyone is abiding by the law is fundamental to gaining freedom. Okay, so people need rules and regulations for everyone to follow so that they will not infringe upon each other. And usually, when it comes to rules and regulations, sometimes I will rephrase it and use the word having consensus among each other. Because when we are together within the community, or when we are with others, sometimes we need to negotiate. We need to share it out, our feelings, our thoughts, so that we can try to be on the same page when it comes to doing certain things. Okay, but of course, like we need the rules and regulations. Like if we talk about the on the road, okay, if there's no rules and regulation when it comes to red light, what should we do? Continue driving? Of course not. We will stop. Okay, it's because we already have the consensus saying that, oh, when it is green light, it is a go. When it is yellow, should we stop? Prepare to stop, not prepare to pedal the gas. Okay, and red light is for us to stop. Okay, so in many ways, when we have rules and regulations within the society, within the community, within the organization, within the company, okay, it's more like trying to have a consensus that we are on the same page in doing the same thing, doing the certain ways of doing things, right? And with guidelines provided by a legal system, no one will transgress the boundaries and the society can function in an orderly manner. This way, personal freedom will be protected. And sometimes when it comes to rules and regulations, or even talking about the law, sometimes people might think that it is like, what do you call that? What is the opposite of freedom? Bondage or the restrictions. Yes, I'm trying to find that word. But then if we were to abide with the guidelines, go with the legal system, and in Buddhism, we always talk about precepts. By abiding the precepts, upholding the precepts, it actually gives us freedom. Okay, like what does it mean? Let me elaborate a little bit more. It is because precepts, or the 5 precepts, are fundamental to being human and getting along with others. So this embraces the importance of respect. Whatever precepts that the Buddha laid down is for us to learn how to respect each other and not to violate others' rights, okay? To protect others, to respect others, okay? And then when it comes to 5 precepts, like this is also a refresher course, okay? What are the 5 precepts? Refraining from killing, okay? No stealing, no lying, no intoxication, and no sexual misconduct. Yes, okay? So all this is like preventing people from infringing upon the life, property, reputation, trust, and wisdom of each other. Okay. How? Okay. So I'm not sure if grammatically this sentence is correct or not, but what I'm trying to ask everyone is like, what would happen if a person were to break a precept? Out of the 5, a person might break a precept and ended up breaking all 5. Being intoxicated. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So when it comes to intoxication, right, it is not like referring to, like some of us might be referring to like taking a glass of wine, but here is over drinking. So that's why we use the word intoxication. You're putting in something that is intoxicating ourselves, like so that we won't be able to think rationally. Okay, we won't be able to act rationally. So And I believe that some of you might have heard the story that Verbal Master has shared. There was one person who think of taking alcohol, drinking at home. Okay. So when he thought of drinking, he was thinking of like having something to go with the alcohol, with the drink. Okay. So he didn't have anything at home, but he looked out the window and he saw the neighbor. There was a chicken that is walking in the garden. Okay. So eventually he went out and captured the chicken, and this is already what? Stealing. Right? It's not his chicken. Okay? He captured the chicken and killed it. Okay? He killed the chicken. And then he cooked it and started drinking a lot of alcohol. Okay? And together with eating the chicken that he cooked. And when the neighbor came back and couldn't find where's the chicken, and the neighbor came ding dong and asked, "Have you seen my chicken?" Okay. And then of course, because this person was intoxicated, and of course in his mind he never thought about what to say, and he just lied to the neighbor. Okay, lied. Okay. So how many precepts that he has broken? 3 so far. Okay. Stealing, killing, lying. Okay, and also intoxicant. Okay, he is already intoxicated. He's already drank too much. Okay, and then because his mind wasn't clear, not only he lied to the neighbor, but he actually sexually harassed the neighbor because it's a lady. Okay? He was a guy. Okay, but anyway, based on this illustration of this story, what Verbal Master is trying to highlight here is like when a person break one precept, a person might end up breaking all 5. Okay, and the 5 precepts is not just required by Buddhist practitioners, but it is the fundamental of being a human. If anyone were to break one of the 5 precepts, one would be going behind the bars. Like for example, killing. Okay, killing here in the story we just illustrated like an animal, but when it comes to 5 precepts, it's mainly focusing on taking others' life. Okay, in a way. Okay, so when it comes to upholding the precepts, if we were to respect each other, and also like not to harm others, okay, we will be able to enjoy the freedom of in this society. You don't have to lock, bolt, chain your house. At the same time, you won't be able to sleep at night because we are afraid of others coming in, right? But if every one of us in the society uphold the precepts, abide with the laws and regulations, every one of us can enjoy freedom of our life. Okay. Take for example, more than 20 years ago, when I went to Toronto, right, to attend one of the young adult conference. Okay, so that was the first time I stepped foot in Toronto. So one of the young adults took me to a shopping mall to get something. And then when we left the car, I was thinking, how come she didn't have to lock her car? And I asked her, you forgot to lock the car. And she said, no, we don't lock our car. Yeah, that was more than 20 years ago. I'm not sure about today. Yeah, I'm not sure about today, but that was like more than 20 years ago. And I was like, and then after hearing that, I said, oh, wow, people here must be very nice. It is because everyone uphold the precepts. Everyone respect each other's properties, life, rights, everything. So in a way that everyone has the freedom, you don't feel afraid of losing something because we are comfortable being with others and not afraid of like losing something if you don't safeguard it. Okay. But then we look at the society today. Is it like 20 years ago or not? Okay. things have changed. But then again, upholding the precepts is also very fundamental in our life. Okay? And then the last point that I would like to share with everyone, based on what Verbal Master has mentioned, is distinguishing right from wrong is fundamental to understanding the mind. Okay, so I know that it is very difficult to differentiate between these extremes using absolute standards. Okay, therefore we cannot rely just on our own understanding to judge others and make demands upon them. Okay, and of course, however, that in our conscience, okay, we still need to have our own basic standard for right and wrong, good or bad. Okay, even though they are relative in many ways. Okay? Even like when it comes to good or bad, especially the situation that we are in, that's not really good and bad in the situation and experience that we have, but it's really based on how we define it, how we look at it. But when it comes to right and wrong, we always have the guidelines of not harming others, not being respectful towards others. Then we can determine the standard of what is right to do and what is wrong to do. Okay. So, but then again, there's sometimes like again, it is very hard, especially when we are in a situation that we're very desperate. Okay. Let me share with you one real life story that I was being told a few days ago. I received a phone call from New York. One of the film executive director that he would like to learn a little bit more about the Buddhist perspective of this incident. Okay. So he was the one who shared with me this news that what happened back in 2017 in Rosemead, okay, in LA. Okay, so the whole story, I'm not sure if any one of you have come across this story, but it is between the families that were immigrants from Cambodia. Okay, so one of the families, the mom has the name of Hung. Okay, she was diagnosed with cancer, and she got to know that she only had 4 months to live. Okay, and before that, a few years ago, okay, her husband was also diagnosed with cancer. Okay, and then her husband passed away 3 years after. Okay, and then a few years when she was like back in 2017, where she was diagnosed with cancer. Okay, she filled out the paper. Okay, to buy a handgun. Okay, to legally buy a handgun. Okay, that's a 10-day period or waiting period. Okay, and then she has a very close childhood friend by the name of Chong. Okay, she passed her best friend the death certificate of her husband. Okay, because she knew that she only had 4 months to live, 4 months life to live. Okay, and of course, like the best friend were feeling very sad. Okay, and not only between the two ladies, Hang and Chong. Hang was the one with the cancer. Hang also have a 17-year-old boy. Okay, I won't say boy anymore, but a son. Okay, and then the son actually experienced is having schizophrenia, where he had that the beginning when his father passed away because of cancer. He had problem accepting that truth, and then his son's name is George, started to being away from his friends, and then like no longer have experiencing the social experience within the classmates. Okay, eventually he was being diagnosed to have schizophrenia, And then in the class, he no longer talked to the classmates. And then he ended up he flunked all the examinations. Okay. Not only that, he started to being indulged in violence, like the computer games, even like drawing the Nazi symbol, everything that are showing the signs of aggression. Okay. And then at the age, he was 17 years old. And then the mom noticed such a change, drastic change to her son, but she didn't know what to do to help his son. Okay. But of course, like not only that, with the incident of the mass shooting, the gun violence, okay, this is just an indicator between January and May, the mother started to worry about this son because the son is having schizophrenia and is showing a lot of sign of aggression. And then the mom is afraid that after 4 months, when she passed away, nobody knows about the condition of her son. Okay, nobody will take care of her son. She's afraid that the son is going to do something bad because of the tendencies. Okay, she didn't help her son to look for psychological support, join to the psychologist, okay, because she didn't know where to look for help. But then when she was in such a desperate condition where she only have a few months time and she doesn't have anyone else except her best friend Chong. Okay? There's no, to her, she didn't have a chance. She didn't have any choices. Okay. So do you know what she did? She rented a room in Valley Hotel in Rosemead. And then after 10 days, she got the handgun that she purchased legally. And then he asked her son, George, to go, to stay in a motel with her. And then when her son was sleeping, she actually shot and killed her son. Okay. So that's why the title of the news is very, very sad, a lady bought a handgun and shot her own son. But the news after that elaborate a little bit more about her condition where she was so desperate. So I put the title here, A Desperate Choice, but not the last choice. Okay? Meaning that sometimes when we are in such a desperate condition, sometimes we won't be able to see what are the options, and we thought that that is the only option. It's just like the suicidal cases that we heard so frequently, even in San Diego with the fine weather. But there's a lot of like suicidal case here in San Diego because an individual didn't know where to look for help, look for support. And then they thought that this is the only choice that they have. Okay, but then if we can truly distinguish what is right from wrong, we will be able to try to find an alternative to the choices that we make. Okay, we will be able to take a step back and try to look at the whole picture in a way. Okay, but then this was happened like back in 2017. It has been 6 years. Okay, going back to the phone call, his name was Eric, okay, from New York. He was like sharing with me that this story, and I was like sharing with him like the Buddhist spiritual support that we can give to anyone who needed spiritual care. Okay, I share with him a few examples, few cases that I've shared and helped individual being able to step out of that desperate thought, okay, to look at another perspective of life. to look for an option in the choices that one can have. Okay, so that also conclude that living in this Saha world, meaning that this world that we lived in, the word Saha in Sanskrit, it refers to a world that is filled with endurance. Okay, something that is not easy, but we have to learn how to endure it. We learn how to overcome it. Okay, it might not be easy for us to cope with challenges. However, we constantly remind ourselves to focus on the propriety and fundamental of life, looking at the big picture, follow the Noble Eightfold Path, and always remember where says Dharma, that's always the way. Okay. No matter how hard it is, no matter how desperate things are, we have to learn how to pull ourselves together and calm down our mind and try to think of an alternative. We try to do a lot of recalls and reflections of the Dharma that we learn. Only then we can find the solution to our problem in our everyday life. Okay. So this is what I would like to share with everyone today. So there are a few questions that I would like everyone to share, to think about it. The first one is, what practices or habits help you stay connected to the present moment and appreciate the fundamentals of life? Okay. And what role do compassion and empathy play in our understanding of propriety and the fundamentals of life? And how do you cultivate these qualities in yourself and extend them to others? Okay? Not only ourselves, but also to others. Okay? So again, I'll post these questions on our Google Classrooms. If you thought of anything that you would like to share, feel free to leave a comment. And then if any one of you don't have access to Google Classroom, you feel free to email me with your thoughts and comments, okay? So right now, we have about like 5 minutes time. Anyone have any comments, feedbacks, or questions? Anyone? Wow. Would you like to?
I guess two questions. One, how do you know what's propriety? I know it sounds weird to say that, but if someone's growing up in a situation that teaches them differently, how would you know what's proper and what's not?
Can you give an example?
I was just thinking about like Slumdog Millionaire. It's a movie that the guy, he grew up like stealing to survive. So in his mind, it's different from like, it would be like, oh, that's not proper, but that's how he survives. And then the second question following up, it's like, when we look at the big picture, I understand the whole, you don't want to be stuck in this is my only way, no highway. But if we look at the big picture, how do you not get overwhelmed by like all the noise?
Okay, thank you, Marisa. Okay, so the quick answer or feedbacks that I have in terms of the first question is, instead of like analyzing whether it's right or wrong, just look at it if change a perspective. If that person were to do it to us, how would we feel? Just like the examples of stealing, okay? One might be because of the social environment, the background that a person might grew up in that environment. But if you don't know whether your action is right or wrong, you just change a position, a perspective. What if the person were to do it to us? How would we feel? How would we view it? Then we will know whether it is good or bad. Okay, because everything goes back to respect others in a way. Okay, whether it is the word propriety or fundamental that we use throughout the whole context here. But then again, to simplify what we have discussed today, overall recap of what we have discussed it's like we just try to look at it from a different angle. If we were in that situation, how would we feel? If we're in that shoe, how would we react? Okay. And then when it comes to the big picture that you mentioned, okay, it goes back with how big is big. Yeah. And of course, like whether a person will be overwhelmed or not, I couldn't think of a situation, an example. Do you have any examples? Because just trying to, just like for example, when I learned just like the news I shared with you earlier about a mother killing her son. Okay, I tried to understand what had happened, okay, before that, instead of just looking at what that incident itself. Okay, that is also an example of a bigger picture. The same goes to in today's society. Many people are experiencing a psychological breakdown or mentally needed a lot of like support. I won't use the word disease or disorder, but they just need to have extra care, concern, extra help, support from others. Okay. And most of the time, it could be because of something that had happened. Okay. Just like the examples that I shared with you before, a kid, a child growing up in a very, very calming and a loving environment, when this child grows up, the child is brave enough to explore the outside world because in the child's mind, everyone is kind, everyone is compassionate, everyone is loving. But if we were to look at a child growing up in a very abusive family since young, okay, when the child grew up, the child will be, because of the past incident, the child will grow up as someone very timid, constantly being afraid. And sometimes it could be in an extreme. The child might grow up being aggressive, being abusive in a way. Okay. But if we don't look at the whole picture itself, we might just label that person like someone had mental issues. Okay. Someone has some problem with the temper. We might just label that person that way. But sometimes when we learn more and more about what happened today, we try to understand the bigger picture of what had happened before. Okay, what had happened before this, or even the background behind it. Okay, I'm not sure that will make a person overwhelmed, or that is just my personal interpretation of like looking at the big picture. It's trying to understand the causes, the condition, and the effects that we experience.
You're looking at it as a big picture for a staff person, but what staff person is trying to, I was more asking about how, say someone's overwhelmed, and that happens a lot with like the increasing demands of life sometimes. How can, I mean, besides breathing, which we all try to do, how do you look at a big picture and be like, okay, this is not so bad, or, you know, this is what it is, there's more options. Because a lot of times there's a lot of things, there's a lot of options, but maybe nothing makes sense when you're in, say, in a desperate situation. I was looking at the point when you're mentioning about Rosie, because that's where my hometown is.
I just realized that people won't be able to hear you, especially those online.
Oh, I will just.
You want to unmute?
Yeah. I think my question about the big picture and not feeling overwhelmed is it takes perspective to come back to a big picture, but how do you know what to do afterwards when you see a picture? Like, for example, the case with the mom and the child, which is very sad, and also hit home once because that's my hometown. I was reading about it as we were talking, and here in this, she also has brain cancer, which also distorts her thinking in some ways. Well, I mean, I'm not saying, I don't know if it distorts her thinking, but it can distort someone's thinking.
Mhm.
So it's like, if someone's already in a situation where their mind is distorted, how do you look at a big picture and not feel too much? Like, it's easy to just be like, well, this is my solution. That's the way to go.
Yeah, I think that if you're referring to your examples there, I think that it is important for us to have a community to be with together. Okay? Because when things happen, it's not just ourselves, it's not just within the family, but at least not only we have friends, we have the whole community to support us whenever there's a need. When we are willing to open up our situation with others, then we will eventually have support. And this will not be the effect that we're seeing on the news. Okay, of course, like looking at the news today, we might think of a better solution. Sometimes people might say that, oh, this is already too late. Is it too late? We never know, because similar incidents might happen again. So when we try to think of the possible solution, possible change, we are preparing ourselves to how we're going to better support each other, how we're going to try to introduce a better way when we are in this situation. How should we look at it in different solution, different possibilities? Okay. And of course, like going back to what you mentioned earlier, sometimes when we are in this situation, the support from the community, support from our loved ones are very important to help us look at the big picture, help us take one step back, and knowing that, don't worry, you have the support of the family, you have the support from the family, friends, and the whole community is being with us. Yeah. Yeah, so I didn't really answer a question, but this is what I can thought of for now. Okay, and because of the time, let us do the last part. Okay, so next week we're going to talk about how to be mindful of what lies ahead. Okay, so for those of you with the earlier edition, will be page 126. To 133. And for those of you with a newer version, it'll be 106 to 113. Okay. So let us all join our palms as we dedicate merit. May kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity pervade all worlds. May we cherish and build affinities to benefit all beings. May chant, feeling, and precepts inspire equality and patience. May our humility and gratitude give rise to great vows. Okay. I hope everyone have a safe and great week ahead. And I'll see everyone next Saturday. Okay, Amitofo, take care.